This is the story of a little monster that can live inside you, mating, laying its eggs, and preventing you from having children. This bizarre parasite went undetected inside an Auckland woman for a decade, and even when it was found, nothing was done for months. But don't worry, as Paula Penfold will show you, this turns out to be a good news story, a story of great joy.
Let me kiss.
She is cuteness personified.
Let me kiss.
Thank you, Papa.
With eyes like this, she could easily be starring in her own show.
Gives you funny face. Gives you funny face. Hey.
But it's a miracle that 16-month-old Ava Gascoigne is here at all. A monster had to be vanquished so she could make her entry into the world.
You want your brother to rub your tummy again?
An arrival fought for and desired for years by her parents, Jacinta and Aaron Gascoigne.
We bawled her elves out, basically.
You couldn't talk, you couldn't tell me.
You guys had been through the mill by then, hadn't you?
Yeah. And then some. Chewed up and spat out.
So let's go back to the beginning. Which, as you can see, is a while ago. Check out the leather pants. Back in the early 90s, when Aaron's the lead singer in a band. He met Jacinta at the student pub, and they've been in love ever since. Heading off on their OE in 1999 on the Kiwi Rite of Passage, based in London, and travelling whenever they could. Including to Africa, where little did they realise a danger that lurked in the water would have such a huge impact on their future. Their vision for that future was as picture-perfect as their wedding. When you were newly married, did you talk about the prospect of children and family?
It was a given, I think.
Yeah, and you think, right, I'm going to have 3 children, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, but yeah.
Then, as now, family is the most important thing to Aaron and Jacinta. Starting that family was pretty straightforward. Their firstborn, Jack, is now 7 years old, a healthy, happy, confident boy. Conceived in 6 months, pretty average, and with an incident-free pregnancy. After a year or so, they wanted another.
For us, we really wanted Jack to have a brother or sister. Jackie, look!
But number 2 didn't quite happen as planned. Jacinta had miscarriage after miscarriage, and by the 3rd time, an ectopic pregnancy, she had to have her left fallopian tube removed. Although the specialists were still telling them everything would be fine, she could still conceive, and since she already had 1 child, the chances were she could have another. Aaron, you say that you were sure, even from the outset really, the first miscarriage, that these weren't straight miscarriages.
No, exactly.
What made you so
guess
sure?
It was the pattern. It was down to days. I mean, you could literally, we'd progressively further. We could literally put it on the calendar when we thought it was going to go pear-shaped.
Then 3 more pregnancies, 3 more miscarriages. What do you go through when you're conceiving these babies over and over again? Do you allow yourself to imagine the possibility of giving birth to them? Do you name them? Do you imagine a future with them?
Do you name them? No, it's just too hard to no. You.
The one thing that always used to get me was if you went to the doctor and they gave you a due date, because once you have a date, it sort of made it real.
The 7th time it happened was another ectopic pregnancy, which would mean the removal of Jacinta's remaining fallopian tube. And during the operation, the surgeon took a photo of an infection that he hadn't seen before and sent it off to pathology for analysis.
It was an infection that he'd found on the last remaining fallopian tube that he didn't know what it was.
And what happens when the pathology comes back?
Well, it didn't.
That's right, they weren't told the results from the pathology report. But had you ever seen a case of this? It wasn't until 6 months later, when haematologist Dr. Claire McClintock was trying to establish the cause of their problems, that they found out. Do you remember that meeting with Aaron and Jacinta?
I remember it very well, actually, because I always do my clinics on a Tuesday morning, and I read her notes, and the original note is, please could you see this woman who has recurrent miscarriage.
We went through everything. We had our little file, and our little file contained the photo that the surgeon at North Shore Hospital had taken, that we had a copy of.
Of the infection?
Of the infection. And it literally fell out on the table, and we were like,
That's right.
we've never had the pathology reporter found out what that infection was.
And it was quite a long report, which is a little bit unusual, and just the word that stuck out for me was schistosomiasis, and I was taken aback by it. I thought, hang on a minute, schistosomiasis.
And she said, have you guys been to Africa or Egypt? And we said, we've been to both.
And then the next question was, well, have you ever swum in Lake Malawi? Because that's the other danger zone that we know about. And they said, yes, we did swim in Lake Malawi. I said, that will explain what's on this biopsy, because it looks like you've got a disease called schistosomiasis. Have you ever heard of that?
They sure had heard of it. Remember, during their OE, they travelled through Africa and knew the parasite schistosomiasis, also known as bilharzia, was a risk, particularly when they did a dive course in Malawi. But they thought they were in the clear. Were you feeling symptoms or sick in any way?
No symptoms. And they apparently if you haven't had any symptoms within 2 weeks, then you don't have it.
Except you did, clearly.
Mm-hmm.
So how many years were you carrying around this parasite in your body?
10 years.
And what was it doing to you for those 10 years?
Basically, it was it had infected my fallopian tubes, and it had laid its eggs in there.
This is what had been laying its eggs in Jacinta's reproductive organs. And even though it looks like something out of an alien horror movie, it's actually a scene from a love story. Because this is an adult pair of bilharzia. Her completely enveloped by him, she'll stay like this, surrounded by him, for decades.
And then they copulate forever. It's just...
For infectious diseases specialist Dr. Susie Wiles from Auckland University, the parasite itself is fascinating.
This parasite is a worm parasite that lives in our bloodstream. The adult worms are about 1 to 1.5 centimetres long, and they're quite unusual for parasites in that they have a separate male and a separate female. But what's also really unusual and quite amazing about these parasites is that they form this monogamous partnership where the male and the female pair up and then they stay together forever, mating continuously and producing about 100 eggs every day.
While there are a few cases a year in New Zealand, it's a huge problem worldwide, with around 200 million people infected, second only to malaria as the most devastating parasitic disease. Its life cycle is complicated and clever. Initially hosted by snails in rivers and lakes, it then leaves them and swims in the water until it finds a human, which it needs in order to breed.
And then what happens is if they come into contact with human skin, they penetrate it. Oh, it's horrible.
Once it's inside the human body, it migrates towards the bladder so that it can be excreted, ideally back into the water system, to start over. In Jacinta's case, which is common, it infected her reproductive system where there's a rich supply of blood. Can you tell how many adult worms she was carrying?
So one thing you could do is to look at how many eggs are being excreted. So that would give some measure of the burden of the number of worms that she had. But remember, a lot of them get stuck in the tissue, and that's why you get the symptoms of disease. So that would be one way to do it.
She could have had one monogamous pair of worms,
Yeah.
or
quite a few invading her bloodstream drinking her blood. Oh no, it's horrible. It's a horrible, horrible thought, but quite fascinating.
So how do you treat something that looks so sinister and that had such invasive, serious consequences?
One blood test and one pill.
That's all it takes?
That's all it took.
To cure bilharzia?
That's all it took. One really big pill, but that's all it took.
And the parasite is dead?
Correct.
So had the parasite been diagnosed 10 years earlier, or even 5 years earlier?
Again, you know, we also got to refer back to Jack, because, you know, he, the legend, you know, he must have had a good sidestep.
Remember Jack, who was born 5 years after the trip to Malawi.
You know, they actually think that potentially the bilharzia was in Jacinta's bladder at that time and it crossed over after Jack was born. But yeah, I mean, I guess we'll never know.
Frank, where's the ball? Where's the ball?
But why was it Aaron and Jacinta were the last to know about the parasite once it finally was diagnosed?
Are you ready? Go.
In what seems a cruel and incompetent series of events, the surgeon who removed the fallopian tube and noticed the infection then went on study leave and failed to pass on the pathology findings. The Waitemata District Health Board has now apologised for the mistake. So with the parasite now dead, but with Jacinta's body having sustained so much damage, IVF was their only option. Surely that would work.
Coming up.
I said, I'm turbocharging my sperm. She blushed. I didn't bother me. You know, 5.5 years of hell, and I should be able to fix this. I can fix this.
That's next on 60 Minutes. Aaron and Jacinta Gascoigne went through hell trying to have a baby. A hell they were hoping would end when a parasite that had been living inside her was killed. But it would take more than that to realise their dreams. As they embarked on fertility treatment, it required some Kiwi ingenuity. Here's Paula Penfold again.
Did you have your own fertility tested?
I did, yeah.
What did it say?
Fair to average, you know.
What does that mean?
What does it mean? It means I think they set the bar a little bit high, personally.
Aaron Gascoigne likes to keep in shape. But with only average fertility and with another round of IVF looming, probably their last, he wondered, what could he do to help their chances of conceiving?
I wanted to fix it. I'm a Kiwi bloke. I can fix things, you know. It's 5.5 years of hell, and I should be able to fix this. I can fix this. And so what I wanted to do was to ensure I had done everything humanly possible on my side of the fence just to be able to do it. So
you start your research.
I research.
What was your aim? I
wanted to essentially create the fastest swimming, healthiest sperm you could imagine. You know, it's just I wanted real good Kiwi tough fellas. You know, and so I researched and I went to libraries and I was on Google and I talked to the lawnmower man and I talked to the mailman and I talked to anyone who would listen. You know, what makes them swim fast? What makes them swim straight? What makes them, you know, not turn corners and, you know, not grow too hair? All sorts of things. And one of the earliest things that I've really discovered in the research, which I was just flabbergasted with, that it takes the better part of 100 days for us to develop our sperm.
What had you thought?
I thought you locked and loaded the next morning. You know, I just thought it was a brand new set. And no, clearly that's not the case.
So through his research, Aaron came up with a list of 26 vitamins, minerals and herbs, narrowed them down to the top 8 and went in search of them at a health shop.
Went into the lovely girl behind the counter and gave her my list and said, I want these please. And she looked at them and we had to go through different, you know, areas of the shop, and she said, wow, this is intriguing. What are you doing here? And I said, I'm turbocharging my sperm. And which was, she blushed. I didn't bother me. It really didn't, because we'd been through everything.
So convinced was he by the research that Aaron, an investment fund manager by trade, came up with his own recipe, combining those vitamins into a product that he's developed and will soon begin to market.
So you were taking truckloads of vitamins every day?
I was taking 13 a day, but through
And you've condensed that now down to one pill?
one pill with 9 ingredients, yep. So zinc, selenium, L-carnitine, arginine, taurine, vitamin C, even good old kiwi fruit extract from down in Blenheim. Yeah, so.
And what does it do?
It supports your healthy sperm. It replaces a lot of the nutrients, vitamins and antioxidants we lack, basically.
There's no scientific proof that what he took made a difference to him. But in their next round of IVF, their embryos were the highest grade, which they'd never had before, even after the parasite had been killed.
Because there are many cynics out there, aren't there, about the benefits of vitamins. The jury's, to many people is still out.
Yes.
You're convinced, though?
Absolutely.
Because?
I can show you her if you'd like.
Hello, Papa.
Little Ava Gascoigne, now 16 months old.
Tell me about Ava. What's she like?
She's cool. She's awesome. Eh? She's as mad as a cut snake. She is just, mate, when she wants up at 6 a.m, she wants up. And a 1-year-old pushing you out of bed and grabbing you by the hair to get up, it's just, so there's no sleep-ins in our house anymore. It doesn't exist. She's in charge. Absolutely, she's in charge.
But when you fought such a hard battle to, achieve her, then I guess
You forget about it now. We've got the prize.
She is the prize, isn't she?
I've forgotten. Not forgotten, but it's in the past now.
1, 2, 3.
You can see why you'd be able to put that past behind you. 10 years of a parasite making itself at home in Jacinta's body. 7 miscarriages, ectopic pregnancies, 2 lost fallopian tubes, 4 rounds of IVF.
There's a whole ocean from here.
Hello.
They want people to learn from what they've been through. For travelling Kiwis to think about the risks of diseases like bilharzia. For doctors to consider it as a possible cause of miscarriage.
Do you think Mum should come up?
And for infertility to no longer be taboo.
Here comes Mum.
In their case, nature and medical science intervened.
Are we going to fit?
But they got there in the end.
It's a family tree.
You're right.
That's cool.